This isn't just my story, it's a mirror for yours. Drop into the comments and let me know what part of you is ready to go, but just won't leave without a fight. Okay, hey, this is Francisca and this is Moment Crisis Life, and welcome to this week's Crisis Confessionals. So, having trained to be a social worker at a very young age, I think I started when I was like 19 and trained for a couple of years, there's a lot of psychology that you learn, right? So the main modality of psychology that I learned when I was first trained to be a social worker was Freudian theory, so psychoanalytical theory, psychodynamic theory. And it was really interesting for me to learn this particular school of psychology because Freud talks a lot about, I guess, understanding the correlation between our past and the things that we've experienced and our behaviors now, right? I guess that's what all psychology is, really. But I know that the way that this helped me in my personal life at the time was that it gave me really just a lot of tools to understand. So it gave me a lot of like psychological, theoretical, intellectual based tools and skills to better understand maybe why my behavior was dysfunctional in certain ways, why my thought patterns were dysfunctional in certain ways. It helped me to understand, the theories around id and ego and superego and how all of those things come together to create kind of the human psyche. It helped me to understand kind of this idea of like a baseline of hedonism, I guess is what Freud would say, that we are all at the base quite selfish and quite hedonistic. And these are kind of like the reptile brain coming forward in our day-to-day lives, which is why it's based on the things that happened when we were younger, right? Because it's those seeds that were planted at a very, very young age and then how we respond to them. And then I think also continuing on throughout my social work career and learning lots and lots and lots of theories around human development, childhood development, around communication theory, around sociology. So like the kind of micro and then the macro understanding of human nature, I guess, has helped me to understand that actually there's not one theory, that there's like an eclectic mix. You need an eclectic mix of all of these different schools of thought. And from that, you can then take and you can compartmentalize and then you can pull everything back together, and it gives you a better basis to analyze yourself. And also, of course, other people's behavior, which is the whole point of it. And then going on to do my master's degree in psychotherapy, I was introduced to Rogerian counselling, so Rogerian theory, humanistic theory, the idea that actually it's the relationship between the counsellor or the psychotherapist and the client that is the thing that brings about change through necessary and sufficient conditions. And I'm not going to go into all of it, but basically it's about being able to sit in a non-judgmental place, being able to hold unconditional positive regard for someone, irrespective of what they tell you, so that then you can then ask the questions that maybe they know that they should be asking themselves, maybe they have already asked themselves, or maybe have never thought about, that allows them to kind of reflect. And you sit in that place that's like a mirror, right? And you behave as if you were that person, as if you understand what they're going through. And that can only really come through like that desire to love, right? That desire to love someone and to love someone irrespective, and to help that person to love themselves irrespective of what they do. So all of this stuff is really fucking great, right? Amazing, yeah. I'm just got so much knowledge. But I think what I found for a very, very long time was that even though I was given tools to a greater level of understanding, actually, really all that did was just burden me with knowledge. So now I had all of these maladaptive behaviors, I had all of these unhealthy patterns of thinking, all these unhealthy practices, and I understood why I did it, but it didn't mean I could change any of it. And actually what it did is, as I say, it just burdened me. It made me feel like, okay, I should do better because I understand more. Ignorance was no longer bliss, right? And I think even before that, even before kind of, I have hair in my mouth, it's very annoying. Even before kind of going into understanding the theory of things, I think I just had like I was gifted, I was born with this awareness of others, this ability to understand other people's behavior, this ability to empathize. And it was definitely compounded by having very emotionally unavailable parents. So I always had to be attuned to what my mom or what my dad was thinking, and I had to pick up on all of these kind of nonverbal cues to know how to react so that I could keep myself safe, or so that I could keep proximity to my primary caregiver, right? So I think that there's always been kind of like that awareness, but irrespective, for most of my life, I've found myself, irrespective of the knowledge, irrespective of the empathy, irrespective of all of that, I found myself stuck in the same patterns, doing the same things, thinking the same things, feeling the same way. Okay, So last weekend, I went to Poland because half my family is Polish and I have family over there. And I have two cousins that I've known for 20 something years now. Like, they are some of the coolest fucking people I've ever met. I remember when we first met each other, I couldn't speak Polish because, I mean, who could fucking speak Polish, right? Other than the Polish. I don't know how a C and a Z and a Y can go together and make a sound. Who knows, right? But they couldn't really speak much English. Their English was like really brutal, really basic. But through just like singular words and just amazing comedic timing, we managed to form this really beautiful, unbreakable bond through comedy, because they are just some of the funniest people that I've ever fucking met in my life. Anyway, so I went over to see one of my cousins this weekend and it was really nice. We just chilled out. We spent time with the kids. We did family stuff, right? It was really, really good. However, on Saturday night, I found myself, God, I found myself making a decision to go out, start partying, start taking drugs again, like I'm fucking 23 years of age. Or, to be fair, more like I'm 33 years of age, because that's actually when I went through my whole partying phase, because when I was 23, I was busy raising a child and being an adulting and all the rest of it. Anyway, this is something that I haven't done for such a long time and made a decision not to do, like a real conscious decision not to do, made a promise to myself. I made a promise to God. I made all these promises that I was never going to do it again. And honestly, I have not even thought about it. I've not even thought about it since I made that promise, right? Anyway, I made that decision because, okay, let's be honest, I know that relapse is a part of recovery and all the rest of it, right? But I made that decision. So after all the fun was over, and wasn't it such fun, right? I was lying there, yeah. Once everybody else had gone to bed, and I was lying there between the hours of like 3 and 11:30 when my body finally let me go to sleep. And I was lying there and I don't know, I was given some time for, let's say, this was a nice period of reflection, lovely period of reflection for those fucking, what felt like years, right? Lying by myself. Now, usually when I used to make decisions like this, when I used to make mistakes like this and I was lying there, I would just be absolutely consumed with shame, consumed with guilt, consumed with self-loathing, consumed with judgment. And I'd be able to feel it in my whole body. And my mind, right, would just be going on and on and on about how much of a piece of shit I am, and replaying all of the embarrassing things that I said and all of the embarrassing things that I did. And the fact that, I was just basically just a massive piece of shit, right? However, on this occasion, something was really different. So my mind was still replaying those stories. It was still playing that narrative in my head, right? So as usual, it was telling me all of these things. But the difference is that I didn't really feel it in my body. So even though my mind was telling me how shameful I should feel, there wasn't really a feeling of shame in my body. And rather than sit in judgment and sit in resentment and sit in self-loathing, I decided to take the time to really think about why. Like, why had I done this? Why had I made this decision? And actually thinking about it now, the question wasn't so much why, right? Because I feel like why is a very blame-led question. Why? Why did you do it? Why? Why? What's wrong with you? That's kind of like the tone that the question why has. And I honestly try not to ask my children why. I try not to ask my clients why. And I try not to ask myself why. So I don't really think it was a why. I think it was more of like I wonder. Like, I wonder why I've done this. More of like a general wonderingment is what was going on. Shout out to Ross. And I think there was just like this desire to inquire. That rhymed. This desire to make inquiry, this desire to kind of understand, this desire to have like a greater awareness, a greater comprehension about what was going on for me. And I think that for everyone, for me especially, in that moment, and probably in lots of other moments, that wondering really needs to be met with what I would call like real radical honesty. So you cannot search in yourself for answers if you're not going to be honest with yourself in giving those answers. So I spent that time trying to just be radically honest, right? And the fact of the matter is that I know the truth, right? I know the truth. My heart knows the truth of why this happened, right? So yeah, I understood that this was a mistake, right? But that wasn't all. There was more, right? And I also understood that it was like a reminder of why I don't want to fucking do this anymore, because I don't want to feel like I'm dying for 8 hours. Whatever fun you might have for the 90 minutes at the beginning of anything that you're doing, at the beginning of partying is just so much fun, right? So it really was a reminder, but like for sure it was that. But again, it wasn't all. And I think when I finally got honest with myself, what I acknowledged, which is what I already fucking knew, right, is that I had been thinking about this for a few weeks. Not many, like maybe 2 or 3. I'd had these little flashes of like memories of like, oh God, wasn't it so much fun when we used to like party and have loads of fun? And I'd just be having these like mini little flashbacks that I would kind of just disregard, right? Down to the fact that I even sent my cousin a text message and I was like, listen, when I come over to you, I'm just letting you know, I'm not partying. I'm not doing any drugs. I'm not on that anymore. I'm a changed person, right? And I spoke to him about this afterwards and he was like, oh, do you think that you sent the text message to try and protect yourself? And I was like, yeah, definitely. But actually, no, it's not true. I think I sent the text message to start the fucking conversation, to initiate this thing into existence out of nothing. There was absolutely no need for me to even bring it up. Like if I've made a decision and I know that's what I'm going to do, then why do I need to tell anybody? I don't, yeah. I was doing it because deep down, unconsciously, this is what I wanted to do. And here's the reason why I think I wanted to do this, right? Is that if you've watched any of my recent videos, you'll know that there's a really big change happening in my life at the moment. There's like this big process of shedding that's going on. I'm shedding certain people, I'm shedding certain places, I'm shedding certain relationships, I'm shedding certain experiences. And with that, I'm realizing that I'm shedding myself. I'm shedding a past self. I'm shedding a past version of myself that would engage in those people and those places and those relationships and those experiences, right? I think what happened at the weekend was it was my old self desiring my old self, right? It was my old self not wanting to move on. It was my old self not wanting to die, right? And it was my old self not just testing me, right? To see if I would pass the test, but testing me, hoping that I would fail the test, and then hoping that I would crumble after making this big mistake, that I would realize that I'm no different, life's no different, I'm just the same person, given the opportunity, I will always be the same, I'm never going to move on, I'm never going to be any different. But the thing is that what I realized in those hours of darkness where it felt like I was just being sucked into a fucking wormhole of blackness, right? I realized that actually, I am different. Not just in my mind, not just in my behavior, but my entire cell body is different. My whole body's different. It's gone through a complete transformation, right? So even though the thoughts can seem the same, the body's reaction was different. So even though the thoughts were telling me that I should feel shame, I didn't feel it in my body, right? And I think that the reason why I'm telling this story is because I think for me, it really examples why bodily healing is needed. Yeah. It's not just learning theories. It's not just understanding or comprehending. It's not the textbooks. It's not the acquisition of knowledge, right? It's the acquisition of wisdom, right? Because wisdom only comes through experience. And everybody talks about emotional intelligence. Everybody wants emotional intelligence. And everybody thinks that emotional intelligence is about us learning more about how we think and how we feel and figuring it all out in the mind. But emotional intelligence is not in the mind. It's in the body. It's not in the understanding of things. It's in the wisdom of things. It's in the experience of things, right? And I think for me, this is why I feel like it's important to talk about all of these elements. I think it's important to talk about what goes on in your mind and to elevate your thinking, to elevate your understanding of the body, of the self, of human development, of cognitive development, of all of these things, right? Of science and all the rest of it, right? It's really important, but it's really important also to focus on the heart. It's really important to focus on, I don't know, through that understanding, being able to forgive yourself, being able to forgive other people so that you're not carrying it, so that it's not stuck here, right? And then to focus on the body, to then be able to let go, like actually of the hormones, of the chemical compounds that are in the body. And I think that once you go through that process, even when your ego is trying to pull you back, even when your old self isn't willing to let go, even when you're trying your hardest to step out into a new version of yourself, the only way that cycle can be completed is through going through all of those stages. Otherwise, you'll always find yourself back there. So, yeah, I think it was a really interesting experience for me. Okay, so something that I'm grateful for. You know, obviously, I'm grateful that I've gone through that experience. Obviously, I'm grateful that it's given me some recognition about where I'm at the moment. And obviously, I'm grateful that it's reminded me of how important that process is, and that change cannot just come from the mind alone. It cannot come from the heart alone. It has to come from all of your body being in alignment, all of it, all of those three things being congruent, and there being not just integration, but what's the word? Integrity, right? In through all of those things. So I'm really grateful for that, all of that. But actually, also, I'm really, really grateful for the time that I got to spend with my cousin. And even though it's like cringing to look back and be like, oh God, was I actually talking about all those things? It was really nice. It was really nice to talk about those things with my cousin. And it was really nice to have that time, irrespective of where it came from. So, yeah. Okay. So, if that process interests you, then I would suggest come back tomorrow for Monday Mindset. We're going to talk about why embodying is more important than just understanding. But for now, yeah, I think that's it. That's it. Okay, come back tomorrow for Monday Mindset, where we go deeper into why embodiment matters more than understanding. We're not here to stay stuck in theory. We're here to become truth in motion.